All right. This is the second part of day 2. So we're going to be doing a word problem and writing a piecewise function from the word problem. Okay. So this one, you have a summer job that pays time and a half for overtime. So if you're not familiar with that, if you work an hourly job and say it's 40 hours a week and then you work additional time, you get paid more for those additional hours. Okay, so if you work more than 40 hours per week but no more than 60 hours per week, your hourly wage for the extra hours is 1.5 times your normal hourly wage of $7. Okay, so 1.5 times 7 is so 7 times 1.5 is 10.5. So I get paid $10.50 for any overtime. Okay. So if I work 1 hour, I get paid $7. But if I work 41 hours for that additional hour, I get paid $10.50 for that hour. Okay, so for this piecewise function, one of the things that helps when you have a word problem and you're trying to write a function based off of it, one of the things that you can do is make a table. So try to get somewhere by looking at the table and seeing what things change and what things remain the same. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here to this and make kind of just have some scratch work. Okay, so my table is gonna be like my H is my hours, so that's my X value, and then I'm gonna say my pay, so P of H is my Y value. Okay, so say I work 10 hours. I'm getting paid $7 an hour. So how much do I get paid? Well, I take 7 times the 10 hours I worked, and that's 70. Okay, say I work 20 hours. I get paid 7 times the 20 hours I worked, so I get paid $140. Okay, continue that pattern. We get $210. Say I work 40 hours. I get paid for those 40, $280. Okay. Now, for those first 40 hours, that's what I'm getting paid. Okay. So if we just think about that part, if I'm trying to write an equation, that was kind of weird looking. Okay. If I'm trying to write an equation for that table, okay, how am I getting that P of H? So P of H is equal to, well, in each one of them, I took 7 times the number of hours I worked. So just 7H. So that portion of the graph, if that's all I was doing was what is my equation for how many hours I work, how do I figure out how much I'm going to get paid? It's just 7H. Okay, the reason this is a piecewise function is because it gets a little bit more complicated when I'm trying to find how much I get paid if I've worked 41 hours. Okay. Now remember, I get paid $10.50 for every overtime hour. Okay, just because I worked 41 hours doesn't mean I get paid $10.50 for all 41 hours. I get paid the $7 an hour for the first 40 hours, and then that one additional hour, I get paid $10.50. Okay, so we're going to think about it like this. So for the first 40, I get $280. Okay, but then for that additional hour, okay, I get paid $10.50 for that 1 hour. Okay, so that gives me $290.50. So I get $280 for the first 40 hours, and then I get $10.50 for that additional hour. Okay, so say I work 50 hours total in the week. So that means I have 10 hours of overtime. So again, I get paid $280 for those first 40, but now I get $10.50 for 10 hours. And so that gives me 385. Okay, let's do one more. 60. Now it said up to 60 hours. No more than 60 hours. We can't work any more than that. Okay. 280 is what we get paid for the first 40. But now I have 20 hours of overtime. So I get paid $10.50 for those 20 hours. Okay, so that's $4.90. Now we need to figure out an equation for that part. Okay, so again, we're going to look at what remains the same and what is different. I'm going to write it down here. No, just kidding. We're going to write it down here. Okay, so our P of H down here. Well, 280 is the same, plus 10.5, that's in all of them. Now this is the number that's changing, okay? So that's my I'm plugging in an H into this equation, okay? So if I plug in 41 into this equation, I'm not taking 41 times 10.5. So this can't be just an H, okay? How did we figure out what that number was going to be? So for 41, it was a 1. For 50, it was 10. For 60, it was 20. Well, we wanted to know how many additional hours over 40. So what we were doing here was this number was 60 minus 40. I needed to see what was above 40. And this one was 60 minus 50, which was 10. Okay, so, 50 minus 40. Okay, so we're taking the number of hours we worked minus the 40 because that's this part. Okay, so the number of hours we worked total minus 40 because those first 40 we don't get paid the additional $10.50. Okay, so now we just have to put it all together in our piecewise function. So I'm going to write it, and you could multiply this out, distribute here, but I'm not going to make you. It's optional if you want to do that. Okay, so let's see here. Let's move that. So we got paid, this $10.50, remember, was 1.5 times 7. Okay, so we're going to write the function. So we're going to call it P of H. And our first one was 7H, and the other one was 280 plus 10.5 times H minus 40. Okay, now we need the conditions, the restrictions, okay, this second part here. So 7H, that was for anything, my number of hours that I worked had to be less than or equal to 40, okay? Now, my number of hours can't be negative, so I could work none, so I'm going to include 0 here. Okay, so my H, I have to make sure that it makes sense with the problem. I can't work a negative hours. Okay, now for this next one, H has to be greater than 40. We want these to match up, remember, because if I do like 40 and a half hours, I need to make sure that that is in there. So I can't just make it 41. You're going to keep it the same, but this is a less than strictly and not an equal to. So anything greater than 40, but it has to be no more than 60. So less than or equal to 60. Okay, so that's what we did with this table here. So no more than 40 was in the first one, and then the second one was everything above 40, we would use the second equation. So we have that 280 part already. Okay, so now what we're going to expect from this is that if I'm using this second equation, they should match up. Because if I put 40 in this second equation, 40 minus 40 here is 0. So 40 hours, I'm getting paid 280. So we're not going to have a jump in our graph. Okay. So with that table on that second page there, I'm going to use that to graph so you can see what the graph looks like. So down here is my H, that's my hours. And over here is my pay. Okay, so if I work 0 hours, I'm going to get $0. That's how it works, people. Gotta work. Gotta work. Okay, so 20 is 140. 30 is 210. Oops. It's hard to do. 210. 40 is 280. And then we're going to pick up from where we left off there. Something happened. My line is a little bit. Okay, and then the next one, the slope is going to be bigger because I'm getting paid more per hour. So 41, I'm not really going to graph that. I'm going to do 50. So the second part, I'll change colors so we can see. 50 is 385. So 385. And 60 is 490. It's kind of hard to tell, but they do change the slope. It's just not dramatically different. Okay, so now that we have the graph, it'll be a little bit easier to state our domain and our range. So domain, remember, is the input. That is our X values, range is Y values. So in this case, it's H and P of H. Okay, so I look at my X values. I start at 0, and I can go to 60. I don't go anywhere else. So 0 to 60 is my H's, and I can include both of them. And then my range, I can start at 0, and I go all the way to that value there, which was 490. Okay, so 0 is included, and I go up to 490. And then our last question is just a kind of a check to make sure it makes sense. So if I got, how much am I going to get paid if I worked 45 hours? Well, that's going to be in that second equation because 45 is between 40 and 60. So I get paid 280 for the first 40 plus 1050 times 45 minus 40. Okay, so 45 minus 40 is 5. And then times 1050 plus 280 is 332.50, which if I look at my graph, 45, let's see, that's about 332. Can't you tell? Right there, it's 382. 332.5. Okay, so you want to make sure that that answer makes sense to you. You should be getting paid more than you did for 40 hours, and at 1050 for those additional 5 hours. Okay, I know that example is a lot, so if you have questions, make sure you ask me. And give it a shot on your homework. Each problem is going to be different. So that's kind of one of the things you just got to, more practice helps. And so try it and then ask for help.